Hey, and welcome while we read about Dred Scott versus Sandford. This is a Supreme Court case that actually happened. I know you might not think that it did because of what I'm about to say to you next, but I promise you this actually happened. The Supreme Court decided in this case that black people cannot be citizens. This is a Supreme Court case. The actual Supreme Court said this, and it was decided March 6, 1857. So, the Dred Scott case, also known as Dred Scott v. Sandford, that's its full name, was a decade long legal fight for freedom by a black slave named Dred Scott. See him in the picture. The case persisted through several courts and ultimately reached the United States Supreme Court, the last bastion of freedom and defense in the legal courts, whose decision angered many abolitionists. It gave momentum to the anti-slavery movement, and it helped lead to the American Civil War. Ouch. After Peter Blow, his original owner, died in 1832, Army surgeon Dr. John Emerson purchased Scott and eventually took him to Illinois, which was a free state. And then he took him to Fort Snelling in Wisconsin territory, where the Missouri Compromise had outlawed slavery. So he took Dred Scott not to one, but to two places where slavery was illegal. So the moment that Dred Scott stepped foot in those places, according to those states, he was no longer a slave. There, in Wisconsin, Scott married Harriet Robinson, also a slave. Even though they were in non-slave places where slavery was legal. Ew. Her owner transferred ownership of Harriet to Emerson. In late 1837, Emerson returned to St. Louis, Missouri, but left Dred and Harriet Scott behind and hired them out. So he left them in a non-slave state, married, and hired them out. Emerson then moved to Louisiana, where he married Irene Sandford. The Scots soon joined them, returning from a non-slave state where slavery is illegal to Louisiana. John died in 1843, and Irene became their official owner. She denied the Scots their freedom multiple times. In April 1846, Dred and Harriet filed separate lawsuits for freedom against Irene Emerson based on two Missouri laws. One law allowed any person of any color to sue for wrongful enslavement. The other stated that any person taken to a free territory was automatically free and couldn't be re-enslaved upon returning to a slave state. Since Dred and Harriet Scott had lived in Illinois and the Wisconsin Territory, both were free domains, they hoped they had a pretty persuasive case. When they went to trial on June 30th, 1847, however, the court ruled against them and the judge granted a retrial. It means you get to do it again. The Scots went to trial again January 1850 and won their freedom. Irene appealed the case to the Missouri Supreme Court, so the state's Supreme Court, not the United States Supreme Court, which combined Dred and Harriet's cases and reversed the lower court's decision in 1852, which basically made Dred Scott and his family slaves once again. So the courts freed them, and then the courts took their freedom away. The Scots lost their freedom twice more as their lawsuits moved through the court system. So they just kept being named free and then being named not free again. The final time was when the Supreme Court of the United States said definitively, black people cannot be slaves. Chief Justice Roger Taney of the Supreme Court explained the court's decision. Taney himself was a Catholic. He disliked slavery and had freed his own inherited slaves before joining the Supreme Court. However, he did support states' rights and wanted to avoid a civil war. So, he wrote that all people of African descent, free or slave, were not United States citizens and therefore had no right to even sue in federal court. Now, if you had any African descent, you couldn't even sue and no state could make a law saying that you were allowed to. In addition, he wrote that the Fifth Amendment protected slave owner rights because slaves were their legal property. In an ironic twist, the Scots were set free 3 months before the Supreme Court used their case to make their infamous ruling. So 3 months before the Supreme Court declared that all African American descendants in America could not be citizens. 3 months before the Supreme Court said that, Dred Scott, his owner, let him go free. I hope you're learning and I hope you're having fun.